Hello. Okay. So this is my first try doing this, and uh, I plan to do only deck tags of commander decks that I build that I'm kind of proud of. Like I have a lot of builds that I'm not that proud of, so I won't show them. And uh, like to me, I'm a German student. My English isn't perfect, but I'm gonna try my best to explain all the different things the decks can do and are supposed to do. I plan on reading all the comments that I'm gonna get and respond to them, and I hope to learn about mechanics a lot in the future. The first deck that I wanna present to you is Oskar, the Rubbish Reclaimer. It's not that that's the deck I'm most proud of or anything, but yeah, I'm sitting in my room and I just finished the deck list and I was like during the process I watched some videos and I came across a video that was really like low quality and I thought I can do the same, producing low quality videos. Um, I'm not gonna reveal my face anytime soon. Not planning on to do that. So now to the deck. Oscar Rubbish Reclaimer is a commander for 5, legendary creature, human wizard, and he costs 1 generic less to cast for each different mana value among cards in your graveyard. And whenever you discard a non-land card, you may cast it from your graveyard. So the first ability is a static ability, and for anyone who's wondering, mana value sees lands with mana value 0, so you can have a land and 4 non-land cards with different mana values, so you have 5 different mana values. Um, it's not like it doesn't see lands. And the second ability is a triggered ability, which triggers whenever you discard a non-land card, no matter how you discard it or when. Um, just before we go into detail, there are some cards, some interactions that I'm not sure of how they work, um, but they won't be too like important for the game plan. So first of all, like our commander, obviously. And then as Planeswalkers, I'm only playing Teferi Master of Time. For me personally, Planeswalkers like the Narset, part of Veils, or the 3 mana Ashiok from War of the Spark, they may be a good include, but they're not really um, benefiting our game plan. And I'm a player. I like the cards. I like to play only the cards that really benefit our game plan, or the cards I believe that they benefit the game plan. So Teferi has a +1 ability where you draw a card and then discard a card, a -3 ability where target creature I don't control phases out, and the -10 is take 2 extra turns after this one. And the special thing about him is that you can activate one of his abilities every turn at any given time. So it's instant speed once per turn. Also in your opponent's turn, obviously. And that makes him a really really great include in this deck, because the trigger ability of your commander allows you to cast any spell the moment this ability triggers. So when you discard a sorcery in your opponent's turn, you can cast it, but it has to be in that very moment. You can't discard the sorcery and then cast it. Like you can't discard it in your opponent's first main phase and then cast it in his combat phase. It has to be the moment you discard it, or the moment this triggered ability resolves. Um, yeah, that's the Planeswalkers. Then we have 26 creatures. Yeah, when I decided to do this deck list, I decided to make it a rather creature heavy deck list, just because I like creature decks and I like to turn every deck into a creature deck, even though it's not like not necessarily the best way to build it. Anyway, so the first creature, um, we're just running it because of the discard outlet. It allows us to discard any card to any given time. The threshold thing isn't really interesting, and yeah, it's just nice that it's a 2-drop. And yeah, by the way, uh, when I when I'm playing the deck like in my head, I don't have it in paper yet. When I when I'm playing the deck in my head, I always try to not cast Oskar for 5 mana, and it shouldn't be too hard to reduce him to 2 or maybe 3 mana before you cast him for the first time. Yeah, the next card is Looter Ilkor. Again, I want to play a creature heavy deck, and yeah, that's just a creature that's basically unblockable. It has Shadow. Shadow says this creature can block or be blocked only by creatures with Shadow. So it's not not a blocker, but a rather good attacker. And on damage, like whenever it deals damage to an opponent, you draw a card, then discard a card. The next card is Argentum Masticore. That's a 5 mana artifact creature, Phyrexian Masticore. The good thing with artifact creatures is it's easier to cast than blue or black creatures or blue or black spells. I will talk about that because it's kind of difficult in this deck because your the creatures and spells that might generate mana in this deck generate only black mana. Um, just like the Scourge Familiar. It generates black mana, right? But when we look at our distribution, I think it's called like that, between those colors, then we are like pretty much 50-50. Um, so, oh, no, I'm dumb. That's the mana producing stuff. No, we are on 60-40. So 60% of our spells are blue and 40 of them are black. But so yeah, that's kind of awkward with the black generating things, but um, more blue color pips to pay. So I'm glad to have like playable artifact creatures. And this Masticore, it has first strike and protection from multicolor. And at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Argentum Masticore unless you discard a card. When you discard a card this way, destroy target non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to the mana value of the discarded card. So when this ability resolves, um, we do discard the card and we destroy the opponent's permanent. And after the permanent is destroyed, our commander trigger goes in the stack. So even though this card says discard a card, and when you do destroy something, we cannot cast the discarded card before our target is destroyed, only afterwards, because um, whenever an ability or spell resolves, it has to resolve like to the end before other abilities or spells can go on the stack. So the next card is the Raven Man, 2 mana, and legendary creature, human wizard, a 2/1 creature, and it says at the beginning of each end step, it's important that it says each end step, if a player discarded a card this turn, create a 1/1 black bird creature token with flying, and this creature can't block. And the second ability is an activate ability for 4, 3 generic and 1 black, and tap. Each opponent discards a card, activate only as a sorcery. I think we're never ever gonna activate the second ability, but it also like this card is good enough for what it does with the first ability. And then we have Wharf Infiltrator. Is it Wharf? Wharf? I don't know. It's a 2 mana 1/1 creature, human horror with Skulk. Skulk says this creature can't be blocked by creatures with greater power, and since it's a 1/1, it can only be blocked by creatures with power 1. Which, like, it shouldn't be a problem to have that connect to an opponent, to like at least one opponent in a game of Commander every turn. And it says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card, and if you do, discard a card. Whenever we see the phrase "if you do," means that we don't have to do whatever whatever there's written like after the phrase "if you do" when we have a replacement effect. So, for example, with Teferi's Ageless Insight, where you draw double the number of cards you would usually draw, this text would basically just say draw 2 cards and don't discard anything. And also with other replacement effects like uh, look at the top 2 cards, then put one into your hand and one into your graveyard instead of drawing, then you would also not have to discard a card. And in addition to the first triggered ability, it has a second triggered ability which is quite good in this deck, I'd say. Which is whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay 2 mana. If you do, put a 3/2 colorless Eldrazi horror creature token onto the battlefield. Right. The next card is Wonder. Obviously, that's like a no-brainer, I guess. We discard cards in that deck, and as long as that card is in the graveyard, and when we control an island, creatures we control have flying, which is very good. Because, believe it or not, this deck tries to win with combat damage. Like, not only, but mostly. The win con is combat damage. Um, yeah, then the next creature is another discard outlet, which is also a mana ability. So, the special thing with that card is you can, like, let's say we have 4 mana open, right? And we have a 3-drop and a 2-drop in our hand, and this is our creature on the battlefield. Then the 2 scenarios. First, we discard one of our 2 cards, pay it with our lands, and have the mana we produced through Scourge Familiar to cast the second spell. Or we could cast one of our 2 spells and choose Scourge Familiar as one of our mana sources to pay for that spell, which means as the spell is on the stack we get the Oskar trigger. So even though we just had two creatures um, in our hand, we can have both on the stack, which wouldn't be possible if we would just activate the mana ability of the Scourge Familiar. Um, to add one mana. I'm currently thinking of the advantage we have through that. So it's not like this is a super good thing that we can do, but we can do it. Um, for, I don't know. What would it be to have both creature spells on the stack instead of casting one and another like in sorcery speed. Hmm. 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 Okay, I can't really think of something. Um, Another thing though, this is a mana ability. So whenever our opponent has a card that shuts down abilities except for mana abilities, we can still use this to discard our cards. Um, yeah, next card is Wohar Vidalian Desecrator. It's a 2 mana, 1/2 legendary creature, Phyrexian Muffled Wizard. The first ability is an activated ability. Tap, draw a card, then discard a card. If you discarded a instant or sorcery this way, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Oops. And the second ability is 2 mana, sacrifice Wohar Vidalian Desecrator. You may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If the spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it into. Huh. Normally it should say if that spell would be put into your graveyard this turn, right? I don't know. Never mind. Let's just continue. So, if it would be put into your graveyard, exile instead. Activate this only as a sorcery. All right. So this creature is it's fine. It's not the best in our deck. We are not playing too many instant sorceries, for example, and the instant sorceries we are playing aren't like too. It's not like they're very important to us. They are like they are good. We play them for a reason, but it's not like our Wincon is one of those. So the next card, creature card, is Waterfront Bouncer. It's a 2 mana creature Spell Shaper 1/1. Is it another thing? Wait, Waterfront Bouncer. Um, so since it's a old card, I don't know if it has any other creature types. So I'm just gonna check if there was anything. Uh, all right. Wait, did I do something wrong? Waterfront. Waterfront. I'm just gonna check if they errated anything interesting. Interesting. Okay. Um. Huh? Doesn't find it. Doesn't find it. Right here. Waterfront bouncer. Okay, let's just go with what we have there. Um, or maybe we can look at like card details. Few details. Okay, it's also a merfolk. There we go. I don't think I have any merfolk synergies, but yeah, it's a merfolk. So the Waterfront Bouncer has one blue mana, tap, discard a card from your hand, then oh no, the discard a card from your hand is also part of the cost. And the ability just returns a creature you oh, returns target creature to its owner's hand. Um I included the creature like this card because I think I I want to bounce a card to my hand sometimes. Sometimes it's just pretty useful, and it also can bounce a creature an opponent controls. So yeah, good. I'd say good include. um, yeah. So um, wait. For example, this. This is a card that it's excellent. Okay, no doubt. It's a very good card, but it's better if you can reuse it, right? Um, I think it's really that card why I included the Waterfront Bouncer. Like there are some others within ETBs, Sad Robot, Gravebreaker, Lamia. Like some of these also have a decent ETB, but yeah. The next card is Gravebreaker Lamia, 5 mana, 4 generic, 1 black, 4/4 lifelink, enchantment creature, Snake Lamia. Lamia is a creature? Let's go. When it enters the battlefield, we basically entomb, and spells we cast from our graveyards cost 1 less to cast. And guess what? Our opponent allows us to cast those spells from the graveyard. So, yeah, it basically reduces hopefully 90% of our spells. Like, I think we really want to cast almost everything out of our graveyard. Um, by the way, Cage Digger, whatever we have in the card cage. Here, Graph Digger's Cage. There we go. This says creature cards in graveyards and library can enter battlefield pairs can cast spells from graveyards or libraries. So that shuts down our deck, right? Um, what about this one golem from Brothers War? Is it also a Graph Digger? No, it's not. Then we go there. Advanced search. Then it's types. Golem. Um. Oh, okay. I guess subtype is creature type, maybe. Golem. Yeah. And then there is toughness 4, power 0. Now we can search. There shouldn't be too much. What? No way. Okay. Golem. Search. Did I explode the internet? No. Thank God. Okay. And we want a golem from Brothers War. They're not too many. Like, some, but not too many. And it's a rare from Brothers War, I think. Is it from Brothers War? No. It's from um All Will Be One, right? Okay, all will be one symbol. Yeah, I know it, I know it, I know it, I know it, I know it. Okay, okay, okay. Right. Do, 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 do. There we go. So this says players can cast non-creature spells from graveyard or exile. Okay, so permanent can, for example, this our commander doesn't care about this. The permanents, like the creatures, artifacts, enchantments, planeswalker, whatever that we cast, they don't enter the battlefield from the graveyard. They from the graveyard they first go on the stack and then they enter the battlefield, just normal. And this text that's like interesting to us. We can cast non-creature spells from our graveyard. That would like shut down our graveyard, our artifacts and enchantments, instant sorcerers, planeswalkers, whatever we want to cast from exile, graveyard. And the cage digger grave that's like really evil. And obviously any um, cards like Douthie and Leyline of the Void, they're also pretty lethal to our deck. Anyway, um, that's Lamia. I hope that the spells you cast from graveyard is as effective as I am imagining. And yeah, I mean she's a bit overcosted in my opinion, but I'll give it a try. Next card is Sad Robot. I think I don't have to explain it. We just play because we are not green. The next card is Wavebreak Hippocamp. It just says whenever you cast our first spell during an opponent's turn, we draw a card, which basically means that all our no, the first spell we cast in an opponent's turn is also cantrip-like. The next card is All-Seeing Arbiter. This is a card that I'm a big fan of. Um, it's a 6 mana, 5/4 flyer with when it enters the battlefield or attacks, we draw two cards, then discard a card. And whenever we discard a card, target creature an opponent control gets -X, -0, -O, I don't know, until end of turn, where X is the number of different mana values among cards in our graveyard. So this, like, most of the time we can get the 5 different mana values. That's really not hard. And like at least 4. So it turns all of the big creatures into small creatures and the small creatures into very, very weak creatures, which is nice. Obviously, this card is more effective in Spellslinger decks where you don't have decent blockers or any blockers, because we will most of the time have blockers. Not very good ones, but we will have. So as long as our opponents don't have like 6/6 trample things coming at us, we should be quite fine. The next card is Ghostly Pilferer. That's also a card that I'm a big fan of. It's a spirit, it's a rogue, one of my favorite creature types, both. Um, and it says whenever it becomes untapped, we may pay 2 mana. If we do, we draw a card. And whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, we also draw a card. That includes the commanders they cast. Um, Sorry for the sound that just um, wasn't there. Um, my headphones sometimes just turns off. So yeah. Whoops. Yeah, that includes the commanders our opponents cast from their command zone. And the last ability is an activated ability which says discard a card. Ghostly Pilferer can't be blocked this turn. We can use this ability as often as we want. It doesn't matter if he is already unblockable or not. which is very nice. Then the next card is Putrid Imp. That's also a 1 mana discard outlet, and it says when we discard a card, it gets flying until end of turn, and Threshold gets +1/+1 and can't block. The next card is River Kelpie. That's also a card I really like. It says whenever River Kelpie or another permanent is put into play from a graveyard. Like, it doesn't matter if we play something from our graveyard, or the opponent does, we draw a card. But only when the permanent is entering the battlefield, like directly from the graveyard. And the second text is for us personally more important. It says whenever a spell is played from a graveyard, we draw a card. Since we are playing a lot of spells from our graveyard, hopefully, we're gonna draw a lot of cards. And it has persist. So when it dies, it comes back with, when it dies, if it doesn't have a -1/-1 counter, it comes back with a -1/-1 counter. So yeah, very nice. The next card is a Patrician Geist. It I just pronounce it in a rather English way, even though I'm German. Uh, it is a 3 mana 2/2 Spirit Knight with flying. It says other spirits we control get +1/+1, which really isn't important. We play like 2, 3 other spirits, but yeah, I don't think it's gonna matter anytime. But it also says spells we cast from our graveyard cost 1 less to cast. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. Next card is Sage of the Beyond. It's a spirit, giant, 7 mana 5/5 with Foretell. We can foretell it for 2 generic mana from our hand, and then play it for 5 mana from the Foretell zone, from exile. From exile. Yeah, 5/5 flying. And spells we cast from anywhere other than the hand cost 2 less to cast. So that's just like the Patrician Geist or the Gravebreaker Lamia. It's just cost reduction for hopefully most of our spells. Then the next card is Lord of the Forsaken. It's a 6 mana 6/6 flying trample demon with 2 activate abilities. The first one is 1 black, sacrifice another creature, target player mills 3 cards. That ability is not not too important for us. I don't think we're gonna use it a lot. But the second ability is very interesting. It says pay 1 life, add a colorless mana to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast a spell from your graveyard. Um, it's a mana ability, and it's gonna allow us to cast like any artifact spell we discard and cast from graveyard through our commander's triggered ability, basically for free or like just pay life, which is very nice. Like it's awesome, and we can also pay the generic mana cost for our non-artifact spells with it. So I think that's really strong card in this deck. One of the very few decks it's really good in. It's like also pretty good in um, Chainer, like the red black 4 mana Chainer commander. And I'm sure there are some more commander decks where this card is really good in, but there are not a lot of decks where this fits. The next card is Sir Conrad the Grim. 5 mana for 5/4 creature, human knight, legendary. And whenever another creature dies, so this ability sees all creatures on the battlefield, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard. Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent. So the first 2 triggers, they look at everything, and the last just checks our graveyard. And then also activate ability for 2 mana, 1 generic and 1 black. each player mills a card. I don't think we're gonna activate the second ability a lot, maybe never. But I think, as almost everyone knows, Sir Conrad wins games. And when we discard a card, a creature card, it is put into our graveyard. And when we cast it through our commander's triggered ability, it leaves the graveyard. So when we have our Cabal initiate and we discard our Argentum Masticore and cast it, Sir Conrad will deal 2 damage to each opponent, which is just very good and very effective. And also, Sir Conrad sees tokens, and there will be times where we actually create a lot of tokens in this deck. One thing we have to pay attention to is that when a creature token dies, it is put into the graveyard and then like disappears. And the thing is, it doesn't really leave the graveyard. Like as a token, it does, but not as a card because it is not a card. So Sir Conrad says, or a creature card leaves our graveyard. That doesn't happen. It's a token. It's not a card. And pretty much everything that checks if something leaves the graveyard says card, which excludes tokens. Um, so yeah, tokens are good with Sir Conrad, but not as good as some players think. Um, Next card, Archfiend of Ivnir. I think a lot of players know that card. It's a 5 mana, 5/4 flying demon with a trigger ability. Whenever you cycle or discard another card, whenever you cycle or discard another card, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponents control. And it has cycling for 2 generic mana, so it can discard itself, which is very nice. There will be times where we don't have anything on the battlefield or in our hand to discard other cards. So cards that have cycling or can somehow discard themselves are especially good. And I think if we want to have that trigger ability trigger a lot of times in this deck, I think we can do that. So it pretty much is a board wipe. Not every time, but hopefully most of the times. The next card is Canoptech Tomb Sentinel. It's a card from the Warhammer precons. I don't know which one, but I'm guessing the black one. It's a 4 mana insect 4/3 artifact creature with vigilance, and it says when it enters the battlefield from a graveyard. I'm so stupid. Guys, this is not that good because it doesn't enter the battlefield from our graveyard. So remove, and I have to check again if there's anything that says enters the battlefield from the graveyard. So the persist thing, this is fine. It also sees the spells we cast from the graveyard. Mm. Mm. Okay, not by now, but we have to keep that in mind. The things we cast don't enter the battlefield from the graveyard. Um, so yeah. The next card then is Rona, Herald of Invasion. It's 2 mana legendary creature with whenever we cast a legendary spell, untap Rona of Herald of Invasion. Then it has the tap ability, draw a card, then discard a card. And for 5 generic and 1 black Phyrexian mana, we can transform her into Rona, Tolarian Obliterator. There it's a Phyrexian Wizard, Trample 5/5. Whenever a source deals damage to Rona Tolarian Obliterator, that source's controller exiles a card from their hand at random. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield under your control, otherwise you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So this is a card that in our deck doesn't, like, this side of the card won't do too much in this deck. We don't we don't play uh, mm, effective ways to deal damage to her except for Feast of Sanity. Like, that works good with her, but the rest of our deck doesn't deal damage to. Uh, Wait, we have one sorcery that deals damage to her. But yeah, that's it. The rest of the deck doesn't deal damage to our creatures. So, right. Um, so this side of the card probably won't do too much. Um, we're just playing it for the front side. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna go into any rule questions with this card. The next card is Hullbreaker Horror. Probably, yeah, most of the Magic players know this card. Most of the Commander players. Um, it's a 7 mana, 7/8 flash Kraken Horror. Kraken? Don't know. With this spell can't be countered, and whenever you cast a spell, choose up to one. Return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand, or return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So the first mode of this creature says you don't control, so we can't choose our own spells. But the second mode can bounce our own, like our non-land permanents too, if we want to. This, yeah, this really is a finisher or a game winner, game-winning piece. Um, Especially when you can set up this with with a few cheap spells that you have in your hand, then you can really lock out your opponents from the game. You can just bounce all the spells, basically. It is possible. It's not like it's gonna happen every time you play this card, but yeah, it's a really good card. Next card is Bone Miser, 5 mana, 4/4 zombie wizard. Whenever you discard, it has three trigger abilities. It's so crazy. Um, Whenever you discard a creature card, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Whenever you discard a land card, add 2 black mana to your mana pool. And whenever you discard a non-creature, non-land card, draw a card. So, this is a really good card. It basically says when we discard one of our 33 cards, 33 land cards, we add 2 mana. When we discard one of our 24 creature cards, just because it doesn't see itself, we create a black 2/2 zombie token, and when we discard one of our 7, 20, 30, 40 non-land, non-creature cards, then we draw a card. So yeah, really good. And the last card is Ledger Shredder. It's a 2 mana flying. Whenever both advisor 1/3. Whenever a player casts a second spell each turn, Ledger Shredder connives, and connives means draw a card then discard a card. If the discarded card was a non-land card, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. This is a really good card. You can see the price is up there, but not necessarily because it's a not only because it's good in Commander, or actually the price mostly is up there because it's good in, I guess, Vintage, Modern, Pioneer. Actually, Modern. I'm mostly into Commander. I don't know a lot about the other formats. I really don't. But yeah. This is probably, yeah, it's the most expensive card in this deck. By the way, if you didn't see it, I'm German, and in Germany, if I would like to buy this deck from the card market, then I'd have to pay, yeah, 90 euros, which I think euros to US dollars is basically one to one. Except for the card prices in America are just higher. So, oh, it's excluding basic lands. Okay, so basic lands included, it's actually above 100. Um, but yeah, okay. So, um, we're through with the creatures. Then sorceries, we have Bone Shard, that's a 1 mana sorcery that says destroy target creature or planeswalker. But in additional to as an additional cost to cast a spell, we either have to sacrifice a creature or discard a card. We're mostly gonna discard a card, I think. Maybe sacrifice a creature token. We'll see, or I will see. The good thing is when we discard this card, it's basically an instant, a 1 mana instant. That's gonna destroy a creature or planeswalker from our opponents. And it also might enable another cast, because we can discard a card, an additional cost to cast this spell. Then we have See-Through. It's a 2 mana sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. If this spell was cast from anywhere other than your hand, put each of those cards in your hand instead. Um, so yeah, pretty awesome I think in this deck. Pretty easy include. Um, yeah, let's go on. Feed the Swarm, 2 mana, sorcery, destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to the permanent's converted mana cost. We're just playing this because we are blue-black. We can't deal with enchantments too good. So we're gonna have to use the options that are given. And this is quite nice budget option, I think. Normally, I'd I'm a fan of bouncing non-land permanents. So in other non-budget decks, I'm playing like Brazen Borrower or really anything that can just bounce the enchantment back to its owner's hand. Mostly works for me. And yeah. Then there's Sickening Dreams. It's a 2 mana sorcery that says as an additional cost to cast a spell, discard X cards from your hand, then it deals X damage to each creature and each player, where X is the number of cards you discarded this way. So this can be a board wipe, can be a finisher, or just a small enabler where we just discard 1 card that we really want to cast from our graveyard. So yeah. Um, Then there is Whispering Madness, 4 mana sorcery, 2 generic, 1 blue, 1 black. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way, and it has Cipher. Cipher means as the spell resolves, you can choose a creature you control and basically imprint it. That says and encode it. What? Then you may exile the spell card encoded on a creature you control. And whenever that chosen creature deals combat damage to a player, we can copy the spell and cast the copy without paying its mana cost, right? Its controller may cast a copy of the encoded card without, yeah. Um, so this is one of the cards where we cast the copy. That's not always the case. And the good thing with this deck is I put some creature cards that can't be blocked in here and some with flying, whatever. So I think Cypher is actually quite useful. Um, and it just basically refills everyone's hand, and we get a few commander triggers if it goes the way we want it to. Then there's Turbulent Dreams. It's a two blue sorcery. As an additional cost to cast the spell, discard X cards from your hand. Return X target non-land permanents to the owner's hands. That's also maybe we can like we have a creature, then a blockable creature uh, encoded. We have an unblockable creature, and Whispering Madness is encoded on that creature, and one of our opponents has 10 cards in their hand, and we may have 7. We just cast this, discard the other 6 cards, bounce stuff, go to combat, deal damage, and refill our hand. This would be like a dream situation, but we also could use this just to discard one card, cast it, bounce something, yeah, whatever. Um, it's sad that it is a sorcery, but I'm still gonna try it out. I've never played that card, and I want to see how it plays out. Yeah. Then to the instance, we have Circular Logic. It's a 3 mana instant that says counter target spell unless its controller pays one colorless mana for each card in your graveyard, and it has a madness for 1 blue. Madness is if you discarded this card into no, if you discard this card, discard it into exile. When you do, cast it for the madness cost or put it into your graveyard. Um, so this card it's not a replacement trigger. Replacement effect. I don't know if we can like when it says if you discard this card, discard it into exile. I don't know if we can like before we exile it, cast it through the commander or not. Um, Basically, I think. Can we just search that up? Let's search for. Um, it's Oskar and circular logic. Circular logic. Maybe ruling. Mm, so those posts are all about um, how much the opponent has to pay if you, in response of the spell, exile the graveyard or anything. Then that would be important, I think. But here's something. Um, is there any description of how it works? Well, let's go back. Okay, let's go here and count the number of cards in your graveyard as resolves, yeah, to determine how much the controller of the targeted spell is in a stack at that time. It doesn't count itself. Right. That's the only ruling text here. Okay, then we do it that way. Is madness uh, uh, triggered triggered a trigger? Because West Madness is a triggered ability. Okay, you can only pay it when the right trigger discard the card from it happens. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure about that, but it says Madness is a triggered ability. and so is the ability of our commander. And if we trigger two triggered abilities, we can choose which one resolves first, which basically means we should be able to cast this with our commander's triggered ability, which would be nice because then we cast it from our graveyard instead from exile. Um, so yeah, let's just continue. Thirst of Knowledge, 3 mana instant, 2 generic, 1 blue, draw 3 cards, then discard 2, unless you discard an artifact card. We are only playing about 15 artifacts, I think, so there are 12, and then there's like definitely here the Argentum, also 13. Are there any? There's Sad Robot, 14, and okay, so that's it. Yeah, 14. That's obviously not that much. I'm not playing any artifact lands, right? Yeah, that's not that much, but we really don't care. So yeah, I think it's good, and I'm gonna try it out if it works the way I hope it does. Um, yeah. Next thing, Shadow of the Grave. Next card, yeah, Shadow of the Grave. It's a really good card. 2 mana, instant, 1 black, 1 generic. Return to your hand all cards in your graveyard that you cycled or discarded this turn. That means when we have something like Turbulent Dreams or Sickening Dreams or Scourge Familiar, we can discard a bunch of cards, cast a spell, get them back, and then use them again in some way. So yeah, a great card. I also play this in my mono black Jigs deck because that's a mono black unblockable draw discard deck. Yeah, always was great. Then we have Resculpt, that 2 mana instant, exile target artifact or creature its controller creates a 4/4 blue and red elemental token. Um, some people play Reality Shift over this. I personally don't. I like spells that have more than one possible card type as a target when it comes to removal spells, especially, but also to counter spells. A counter spell that only counters artifact spells or anything is um, automatically less playable, in my opinion, than a spell that counters two or more card types. And the same is true for Resculpt compared to Reality Shift in my eyes. I just don't like that Reality Shift can only deal with creatures. Um, and the 4/4 body that our opponent controls, yes, 4/4 is big, no doubt, but still this card only did me good in the past, so I'm playing it. Then we have Foil, 4 mana. You may discard an island card and another card rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Counter target spell. So usually I am one of those persons. I hate free interaction. I I don't usually I don't play it. But I think Foil is one of those cards that don't see playing Commander at all. Or maybe not at all, but very little play. So I'm okay with playing it. This basically costs us 3 hand cards just to deal with one card our opponent casts. And we are only playing maybe 11 islands. 11. Yeah, we're only playing 11 islands. So maybe I'm gonna cut this card when I played it a few times and realized that I don't consistently have. Yeah, when I realize that I don't have consistently an island in my hand, I'm gonna cut it. And yeah, the next card is Frantic Search, 3 mana instant, 2 generic, 1 blue, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards, untap up to 3 lands. And again, it's important, we do untap those 3 lands before our commander trigger goes on the stack. So we can tap out for Frantic Search and discard 1/3 drop in a land or whatever to then untap the 3 lands and use the mana for the spell we want to cast that we just discarded. So yeah, very good. Then we have Overwhelming Remorse. It's a 5 mana instant, but the important text is this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in our graveyard. I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna try that card out because we're only playing 25 creatures, and most of the time we at least want to cast them with the commanders, so we might end up not having 3 or 4 creature cards consistently in our graveyard during commander games. So I might gonna cut this card too, but I wanna try it out. It's a good budget removal because it exiles the creature or planeswalker we target. Um, Exile removal always is better than destroy. So next, the hardest ploy. That's also a card that I really like, and I didn't build the right decks to actually use that card the way I'd like to. But this may be a deck where we can um, we have, how do you say? I want to basically want to say that we can use all the potential it has. So it's a 3 mana instant, 1 generic, 1 blue, 1 black. Draw 2 cards, then discard a card. Then you gain life equal to the number of cards you discarded this turn. So it doesn't look at the discard of the cards you discarded with that spell, but it sees every card we discarded this turn. And when we think realistically, it's not gonna we won't get more than 5 life off of this spell most of the time. Like that's like almost top end. But 5 life is not nothing. And also the spell has jumpstart, so we can cast it from our graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its cost, and then we exile it instead of putting it into the graveyard again. So this card, not only as it resolves, we discard a card and may cast it through our commander's trigger ability, but also when we cast it from our graveyard with the jumpstart cost, we can also like get going, which is very nice. I like that it has more than just one application. Then we have Change of Plans. It's a 2 mana instant with an X, so 1 generic, 1 blue, and X. It says each of X target creatures you control connive. You may have any number of them of the targeted creatures face out. That's also a really nice card. I think in this deck it's better than in most other decks, but yeah, I really just love it. Um, right. The next card is Ancient Excavation, 4 mana instant, 2 generic, 1 blue, 1 black. It says draw cards equal to the number of cards you in your hand, then discard a card for each card drawn this way, and it has cycling, basic land cycling for 2 generic mana. So again, a card that can discard itself. It can find us a basic land early on, which is very nice. So we might just keep a 2 land hand, which I'm personally a fan of. Also in like the thing with that card, it's not a card that refills our hand, but it can help us dig deeper into our deck. The next card is Arcane Denial, just my favorite counterspell. So I'm basically I play it in every deck when I'm playing blue. It's really every deck. I have blue decks that only run 2 or 3 counterspells, but this is always one of them. The next card is Forbid, 3 mana, 1 generic, 2 blue with buyback. Buyback cost is choose and discard 2 cards from your hand. And buyback is that when you pay the buyback cost, you get the spell back into your hand as it resolves instead of putting it into your graveyard. So it really never touches the graveyard, it just instantly goes back to your hand from the stack when you pay the buyback cost. But you have to pay the buyback cost. Like if you want to do that, you have to pay it before it goes on the stack. Like so before an opponent chooses to not counter it or anything. And it itself is a counter spell. So it's a counter target spell. So this is a card that I have been playing in my Slogurk deck. Slogurk is like land matter stack, and there it was really good. I had a lot of fun with it. My opponents didn't, but yeah. And this is another deck where I want to try it out. Maybe it plays the same as in my Slogurk deck. Maybe not, because in Slogurk you really just discard lands, which you have plenty of, and you don't have to spend any additional mana to get value off of it. While in this deck, you still, I guess, you still want to cast at least one of those cards you discarded this way. Um, Still, I want to try it out. Maybe it's good, maybe not. The next card is Lethal Scheme. That's a card that I'm a huge fan of. I'm playing it in a lot of decks. It's a 4 mana instant, 2 generic, 2 black with Convoke. Convoke means your creatures can help to cast a spell. You can tap creatures as you cast a spell, and they either pay for generic or for color mana of the color they have. So you can tap a blue creature to pay for a black mana, but you can tap a black creature to help pay the spell, to help to pay the black mana. And it says destroy target creature or planeswalker, and each creature that convoked Lethal Scheme connives. So again, a way where we can draw and then discard a card. Very nice. Then the artifacts, we do have the typical mana rocks like Mind Stone, Fellware Stone, Arcane Signet, Talisman of Dominance, Demir Signet, Soul Ring. We're also playing Gilded Lotus. That's not the usual mana rock people play, but um, I thought we could really um, use this card in that deck, in this deck. I'm not sure. Just because we have cost reduction from spells we cast from graveyard, and also we have like the Lord of the Forsaken who can like pay the whole generic mana of the spells we cast. So I thought I'm gonna try it out. This is one of those cards that might help me fix my color thing, where I mostly produce black mana, but have more blue spells than black spells. Um, yeah, the next card is the Celestus. I absolutely love this card. I play this in pretty much every deck where I have draw or discard synergies, or um, a deck that is playing a lot of flash, so we can just start our turn, draw step, and just pass, and so we can always turn the day and night cycle to night and let our opponents um, turn the cycle to day again. So this card just helps us drawing and discarding the cards we uh, drawing cards and discarding the cards we want to discard, and also it gains us a bit of life, but that's not that important. And yeah, just a mana rock, one of those very few 3 mana rocks I'm playing. Then we have Thought Whistle. Um, I thought a lot about having cards that say you have no maximum hand size in this deck, since discarding usually benefits us. but I came to the conclusion that I want to try or want to play the deck where I really have control of what I'm discarding and when I'm discarding it. So the first, let's say, prototype of this deck is playing Thought Vessel and Reliquary Tower. And then we have Currency Converter. So this is also a card where I wasn't sure if I'm gonna play it, but then um, we do have those 33 lands, right? And I'm pretty sure it's gonna happen where we either discard a land in any, like when we, for example, connive or cast our turbulent dreams or anything, or we discard spells that we really can cast in that moment. And then this becomes a 1 mana artifact that then can just tap. We don't have to pay any additional mana to create either a treasure token or a 2/2 black rogue creature token. So this is just basically insane value. I really love it. And yeah, just just very good. It's also €6, so that's quite expensive actually. And then we come to our enchantments. We have Ominous Roost. It's a 3 mana enchantment from a Midnight Hunt, and it says when it enters the battlefield or we cast a spell from graveyard, we create a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying, and this creature can only block creatures with flying. Then we have Feast of Sanity, 4 mana enchantment. Oh, yeah, Ominous Roost is a 3 mana enchantment for 2 generic and 1 blue. Feast of Sanity is a 4 mana enchantment for 3 generic and 1 black. It says whenever you discard a card, Feast of Sanity deals 1 damage to any target and you gain 1 life. This card is good when you, for example, playing against Planeswalker decks or decks that um, really take advantage of small creatures. Then this card is going to be great. And otherwise, I think that's often gonna be a fodder card where we just discard it into an effect, not without even casting it. But I really want to try it out. Then we have Faith of the Devoted. That might actually be a win con in this deck. It's a 3 mana enchantment for 2 generic and 1 black. It says whenever we cycle or discard a card, we may pay 1 colorless. If we do, each opponent loses 2 life and we gain 2 life. Then we have Drake Heaven, 3 mana, 2 generic, 1 blue. Whenever we cycle or discard a card, we may pay 1. If we do, we create a 2/2 black Drake creature token with flying. That's great. Then we have Secret of the Dead, 3 mana enchantment, 2 generic, 1 blue. Whenever we cast a creature, not a creature spell, whenever we cast a spell from our graveyard, we draw a card. That's absolutely insane card draw. Then we have Imprisoned in the Moon. It's a 3 mana enchantment for 2 blue, and 2 generic and 1 blue with enchant creature, land, or planeswalker. And it turns the enchanted permanent into a colorless land that has tap, add 1 colorless to your mana pool, and the enchanted permanent loses all other abilities and types. That's a really great removal spell. Um, Me personally, I I really don't play this on other players' commanders because I know it's just a really feel bad moment when your commander becomes a colorless land that you can sacrifice and you would have to spend a removal spell on it, which also is hard because there are not a lot of removal spells that target land that are usually in decks. There, I think there only is like Generous Gift, Beast Within, and Chaos Warp. Yeah, next card, Tortured Existence. I'm not sure about that card actually, but I'm gonna try it out. 1 black to cast it, and 1 black to activate ability that says choose and discard a creature card from your hand. That's part of the cost. and then it returns a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So whenever you have a creature card in your graveyard that you really want to have in your hand, and you have a creature card in your hand that you really want to have in your graveyard or cast with your commander, then you can just activate it for 1 black mana. The thing is, again, we are not playing too many creatures, so I'm not sure if how often we're gonna activate this, but I'll see. And then we have Unfulfilled Desires. This is a card that's like perfect for this deck. 3 mana enchantment, 1 generic, 1 blue, 1 black. For 1 colorless mana and 1 life, we can draw a card and then choose and discard a card from our hand. That's all it does, and it's perfect. In our deck, it basically reads that we can pay 1 colorless and 1 life more for the spells we cast to draw a card. That's what it says, which is great. And yeah, then we also play 33 lands for everyone who thinks that's um, not enough. Yeah, maybe. I am personally never playing more than 36 lands. 36 absolute. Most lands I'm playing in decks, and in most decks I'm playing 32 or 33. But in this case, none of the 33 lands in this deck are okay. Maybe I consider spells. I don't consider any lands in this deck spells. There is no Otawara, no Takenuma, no whatever. Um, so yeah, I don't know. For me, this is 33 lands. We're playing some mana rocks, and that's fine. As long as the deck we play has enough ways to generate card advantage, we really shouldn't have too much struggle with hitting our land drops. So yeah. Um yeah, that's the deck. The video here is 1 hour and 17 minutes long. I don't have any cuts, guys. This is unscripted, uncut. Um, since I'm really a beginner, I don't have any clue how to actually cut videos or anything. And right now I'm not interested to do so. I'm gonna train reading deck lists and explaining the important stuff. So I think the videos in the future are gonna be shorter since I might not talk as much around um, stuff that's not actually important. But I guess the first few videos gonna be that way. I hope, like my dream or my hope with these videos is to show you people some cards that you may that you didn't know and didn't think of when you play or build your commander decks. Um, and yeah, that's it. You can comment on this deck. I'm gladly having a discussion or receiving recommendations. I have to find a new card probably. No, actually I don't. I'm adding another island. Um, yeah. So right, I think I'm gonna do a video about this deck in 1 year to just to um, show the new cards that I added or like the changes, just to show the changes, right? And with that, have a good day, and yeah, bye.